Hello and welcome to Film Seizure. I am one of your hosts, Chuck Moore. I'm joined by the laugher in the background there, Jason Oliver. Hi, Jason.
Sultry Chuck. I always love it when you bring it.
Oh, it's great! It's great.
Was that sultry? God damn it!
It was a little sultry. I think with your throat situation, also, it's like extra.
Yeah.
Like,
you sound extra sultry.
Yeah, it's like you are definitely in the Kathleen Turner phase of your life.
Yeah. Well, you also heard Jeff Arbuckle there say hi, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm the watcher in the woods, while Jason's the laugher in the back.
Dang, yeah, Watcher in the Woods. This week, we are watching the sexy fantasy comedy drama film, The Fisher King.
So sexy.
Half of those adjectives don't apply to this movie.
No, they don't. And sexy is not one of them. Yeah.
You can't tell me that you can't tell me that you wouldn't spend the weekend with Mercedes Ruehl.
No, I just said sexy is not one of the ones that don't apply.
I'll lay naked in the middle of Central Park at night with
Jeff Bridges,
and Robert Williams. Yeah,
sure. I would honestly do that. I would honestly do that. Movie directed by Terry Gilliam, based on a story script by Richard LaGravenese. I'm doing my best.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. We don't know either.
I think if you don't know, embellish it. You know?
Yeah. LaGravenese.
Hey, by the way, Deborah Hill co-produced this too.
She did. Yeah.
So a little bit of a callback to some John Carpenter action.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
She was quite a producer in her own rights. Yes.
She did some awesome stuff in the 90s. She helped co-produce a series of Showtime movies that were remakes of old 40s and 50s teen exploitation movies.
Oh, nice.
One of which was one that I covered on B-Movie Anima, Confessions of what is it? Confessions of Sorority Girls.
Huh.
It was, just classic, like, girls just bitchy at each other kind of movie, but
always trying to get your B-Movie Anima kicks in here.
Hey, man, I can't help it if I've covered a lot of business here.
It's true. It's true. So, quickly, like I said, Terry Gilliam film, we have Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges, Amanda Plummer, and Mercedes Ruehl. Really
Ruehl won the Oscar for this, too.
Yes, she did.
Yes, a pretty good cast.
Yes.
I'd say. Roger Pratt, who incidentally we'll be talking about again very soon, was a cinematographer who did great work on this, I thought. But really, I brought this to the table mostly on memory. And a lot of the stuff that I loved when I was younger, because I was I probably said this before on the show, a huge Monty Python fan. So once I realized this movie was Terry Gilliam, I was like, oh, I got to see that. And also you have like Robin Williams near the height of his power, if not at the height of his power at this time. So it's a total like, oh, I got to see that movie. So 14, 15-year-old me watching it on HBO, I'm pretty sure. All of the stuff I loved about it as a kid that I remember in my head, I still love. There's some in this. Whoa. Hold on, going on mute.
Oh, got a little bit of feedback there.
I was gonna say before he can finish his feelings on this movie, I do want to kind of mention the rest of the cast is really bonkers in this as well, because he mentioned the main players, and all four of those performances are amazing, but you also have just a wonderful little performance by Michael Jeter.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about his scenes later. But then you've got just these really oddball kind of drop-ins. Like David Hyde Pierce is in this movie.
Yeah.
Kathy Najimy has one little wild scene.
As crazed...
crazed video customer. You've got John Delancey, who played Q on Next Gen. He's got a scene. Freaking Tom Waits is in this movie.
Tom Waits has a scene. We have Harry Shearer.
And Harry Shearer has that strange cameo as the sitcom guy.
Yeah.
I saw that, and I was like, wait a minute, is that Harry Shearer? Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, because there were all sorts of guys like this. Now, going back to talking about Roger Pratt, he's done all of Terry Gilliam's movies,
Yeah.
um, with one exception. He did not do Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Uh, he missed out on that because he was working on The Avengers.
Oh.
Holy
Oh.
cow!
Oh, not a good
Yeah.
trade-off.
Nope. But he did
Oh.
12 Monkeys. He did the Monty Python movies. He did, so yeah, I mean, this is a guy who, I mean, I guess he didn't do, I mean, he did Brazil.
It's interesting too, that Terry Gilliam's style is, him and Roger Pratt must have just this amazing shorthand, because you get the sense that it's a marriage of the two of them, right?
Yeah.
The way everything looks, there's so much consistency in Gilliam's films from the start to the end, and an evolution, I guess, even.
Well, what's interesting is that he's done like very normal movies too. Like he did, I mean, the one we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks is Batman. That's not a very normal movie, but like he did.
But if yeah, that fits the sensibility too.
Sure,
of Terry Gilliam. I mean,
but yeah, it's just like some of the movies he's done, and he even did a couple of the Harry Potter movies. But yeah, I mean, there are a handful of movies here that are not crazy concept like Mona Lisa is not a crazy concept movie, and he worked with Neil Jordan a couple of times. But anyway, yeah.
Hey,
but you can usually tell it's a Terry Gilliam film from the camera angles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, his like high and low angle shots, his Dutch angles, they're just
close-ups, frantic close-ups.
Yeah, those big close-ups, like, and also, I mean, he will take a crazy kind of mise-en-scene, right, and make it even crazier, like, and he'll give it no explanation. Like some of the stuff that's shot towards the end of the movie in the state hospital, it's absolutely fucking insane. It's like, what's that guy's story? He's bleeding from his head.
Right. Yeah.
It's just it's insanity. And I heard that when he made this movie, he wanted to do something outside of his normal range, I guess. It's the first movie he made that he didn't write, I believe.
Oh, Terry
that's
Gilliam?
accurate. That's accurate.
Yeah.
Or at least he wasn't going to do another one that he didn't write, and then he took this one.
Yeah, and I know, and it's definitely the first movie he made that didn't feature anyone from Monty Python.
Oh yeah, because he did Baron Munchausen also, didn't he?
Yeah, that was
Yep.
right
Yeah.
before
No,
this.
he didn't. Yeah, he didn't. Now, Pratt didn't do that because he was probably busy with Batman.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
And also, he did 3 movies in '88 too, so he might have just been a busy guy.
Chuck, though, you're back. You were talking about when you were 14, 15 years old and watching.
Yeah. Quick story, because there may have been a loud noise there. I'm not sure what the mics picked up, but our fire alarm in our house went off.
The whole place burned down. He's right now. You can't see it, guys, because we're on Zoom.
I'm on fire doing
Chuck
this episode.
is actually literally on fire, but you know what? He's a trooper. He's sticking it out for the Fisher King.
I'm going to look like the Red Knight for the rest
I was
of
going to
this.
say, is it the Red Knight? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like 14, 15-year-old Chuck, I loved all of that stuff. The Red Knight, the stuff that is kind of like Terry Gilliam. To me, like when you see the Red Knight the first time, if you don't know this is a Terry Gilliam film, you're like, okay, that is Terry Gilliam. That's Monty Python shit right there.
Yeah.
Just the look of all that. I didn't recall much of the love story from being a kid. And we can get into that later because I have some problems with it.
Me too.
But there's reasons that it's in there that allow me to accept it. But I'd rather talk about the movie a little more first before giving those specific reasons. But yeah, I still like this movie, but I have some problems with it.
Yep. I do too. I really like this movie in a lot of aspects, especially from a forgiveness and redemption standpoint.
Yeah.
The relationship between Jack and Perry is beautiful. It honestly, to me, doesn't even need some of those other storylines that are happening in some ways, especially because I feel like they don't pay off the right way, or one of them doesn't. But we'll get into that, like you said. But they also kind of need to be there to ground this character in another way.
Yeah.
But this is just like, you said peak Robin Williams. It's also peak Jeff Bridges for me. You can see Jeff Bridges in kind of a transition in this role.
Right.
There are moments in this movie where he is like, he's almost the dude, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really fascinating watching his facial expressions in some of these scenes, like things I'd never seen him do before that I know of. I haven't seen everything he's made, but stuff that I saw him do later as the dude.
Well, the thing is, it's his character from King Kong that becomes the dude.
Yeah, it's Jeff Bridges in transition for
Right.
sure. Yeah, I do think even though the female characters in this are not written well, in my opinion, but they are performed perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because at one point I came to the realization that, Robin Williams and Jeff Bridges are very much what you would almost see in female characters leading up to that, where they're building each other up. And meanwhile, Mercedes Ruehl and Amanda Plummer are almost like male characters who are short. They're almost unlikable. They are they cuss at each other. You know, it's like they are less caring about what people think about them as long as they feel comfortable with themselves. That whole scene where she was doing the nails kind of came off to me like, outside of the whole nail thing and what's going on here, it feels as though this is a scene that you would have almost seen between two guys.
That scene felt the most true to me, to be quite honest.
Sure. Well,
The
I
scene
mean,
between the two of them.
they're
Yeah.
real characters at that point.
Yes.
Meanwhile, what do you have going on over in the Jeff Bridges and Robin Williams world? He's giving him a makeover.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
something that two women would have done.
Well, they're both kind of doing the same thing, but yes, you're
Right,
right.
but
You're
it's-
right. That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I
well,
almost
the
saw
two
it as a
women are
reversal.
drinking. They're getting drunk.
Exactly.
They're
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 bitching
laughing
about-
bitching about men, basically.
But bitching about life too, a
But
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
But at the same time, they come off more male to me in that scene.
Yeah.
I don't
whereas the other
presume.
two,
Yeah.
they come off more female in the other.
I
I don't
agree.
presume to know what women do when they're alone.
No, I don't either. But in movies, in the language of movies,
Yeah, sure,
it
sure.
feels like a reversal of the sexes.
I was making a joke anyway.
But it did ring true. I thought.
Yeah.
There are
It
other
did.
scenes that don't. And those are usually the scenes when they're playing off of their male counterpart.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that. I don't remember the first time I saw this movie. I want to say it was sometime when I was working at VH1, the first video store I worked at.
Yeah.
I probably rented it.
Never heard of that
I
place.
probably went down a Terry Gilliam
Rabbit hole.
rabbit hole and watched it. I
Did
wanna
the
say-
rabbit have big pointy teeth when you were in there?
You're a good kid. I think the first Gilliam movie I saw in the theater we've already talked about was 12 Monkeys. I'm pretty sure.
The first one I saw in the theater was Fear and Loathing. The others I'd seen on video.
Oh, in the theater. Okay.
Right,
was
in the
theater,
theater,
yeah.
but I'd seen others. Like I saw this one on video when it came out because, I mean, this was one that made it to video shortly after Mercedes Ruehl won the Oscar. So I was, at that point I was like kind of keen to see it at that point. You know,
Right.
I didn't see it for several years. This is one I just flat out. I was just not. I did not have access to. Wasn't on my radar. I didn't see it for probably 6 years after it came out.
Interesting.
But I loved it, and it might have been one of those two where, like, even before I was working at the video store, I would buy VHS at half price books. I would, because they were like so cheap. They would get them for like $2-3, and I would buy them just sight unseen based on pedigree or if it sounded interesting. And I watched a lot of stuff that way. It might have been one of those.
Yeah, probably cheaper than rental, right? In some places.
Sometimes, yeah, it was. Because those were like, it was pre-DVD, but there were so many VHS, right? It was everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to say about this before we talk about it in full is I don't remember a lot of the first part of this movie, like shootings back when I was a kid. Maybe it's a news cycle thing, but a lot of this movie feels very prescient now,
yeah.
too.
Swap out the radio guy for the YouTube guy.
Or whomever. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. It seems very prescient. But
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
as you said, the radio guy, let's talk about the beginning of this movie because it's
Yeah.
one of my favorite scenes like in movies. Go ahead, Jeff.
One of the things I will say about this is that you're in a in a Terry Gilliam movie when he almost dares you to get past the first 15-20 minutes and to continue to watch it, because
It is kind of a rite of passage almost.
yeah, it's like he does something weird, or because it's kind of like again, saying something like Fear and Loathing. It's that you're dropped right into that road trip, and you have no idea what's going on. You can barely understand the two characters. He's daring you to stick around. And I kind of feel as though he's daring you to stick around with Jeff Bridges being just an asshole. Just being
100%.
a total asshole. And if you stick through it, then you understand what has to happen, even if it's unsavory and unfortunate. You understand from that what's going to happen later, and you get the full picture at that point. But this is very much we're gonna make you want to stick around, or you're going to have to want to stick around. We can't make you do that with nice fluffy characters and stuff. If they start with Robin Williams, it's a completely different movie. You have to start with this.
Oh, you can't. Yeah, you can't start with Robin Williams in this movie. It probably would have made the overall theme make more sense if you started with Robin Williams, but it is like interesting. You have the first shot you have is in the radio station, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jack Lucas is doing his shock jock BS. But they never show his face until the very end. So it's almost like you're listening to him on the radio, which is pretty cool. They don't give you his face, but basically he's, what do you call him? Like a walking, what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Contradiction.
Thank you. He's a walking contradiction, right? He's railing against the bourgeois, or whatever word is appropriate here, when he is that himself.
Yeah.
Right.
And the main crux of it, right? Like he makes fun of a woman by finishing her sentences, which is kind of funny and sad at the same time. But the main crux of it is Edward. Is it Eddie? Edward?
Edwin.
Edwin. Thank you. Edwin he had once told him to ask a girl at a grocery store that he liked to marry him. Right, or to marry him, and she laughed at him and whatever. And this time he's like, the girl that you like, she wants nothing to do with you. These people are not people. They're fake. They inbreed. He uses some other unsavory words and basically says it's us versus them. Right? When in reality, Jack is them. Right?
Right.
But that in turn causes this dude to go in and shoot up the bar that these folks were at. They don't really show it at this point. You see a news cycle story, which basically ruins Jack. Sorry,
right.
Go ahead.
And the news story itself is almost like something out of RoboCop. It's very detached from empathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very matter of fact. They're in people's faces who are like injured and getting treated. And I can't remember the exact line that's used, but like the description of what the guy did to some of these people is so crass that it's just as bad as Jack. And, there's a whole nother angle you could take this about like media, and how they treat this sort of stuff and how they treat the audience at times. And in a way, the movie's doing it to us because, again, Terry Gilliam is daring you to stick around.
Everything is very callous at this point.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Additionally, this is the first time I watched this movie where I think it occurred to me that Jack's career didn't end because of this event. He would have been able to continue on doing what he did and spun it however he wanted to. He legitimately was broken by it.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really thought of it that way. I think my more naive brain was that the public turned on him and he couldn't continue. But I don't believe that happened because he gets his job back so quickly once he decides he wants to do it again.
He calls David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah.
And says, "Hey, I think I'm ready to come back." It's like, I was waiting for your call.
And it's like we just get it right back in motion. Yeah,
right. Like because the end of this movie, I think, is literally only a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, this is again prescience, right? Like his fan base would have loved this and defended him to the ends of the earth and probably grown.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So certainly wouldn't, like you said, maybe when I was a kid, I thought he lost his job too, but really he was just self-loathing, right? And quit working because, I don't know, that is a weird point of this movie to me because I never really see him deal with that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was definitely broken and needed to be.
Well, what's interesting to me is that everything the movie is, of course, is all right, well, we'll get there. I will get there. To summarize my point, though, is he doesn't know what he needs to heal himself. And he tries a lot of different things. And what he realizes that he needs wasn't anything that he was actually pursuing, right? Like the Grail. It was all the things that he benefited from his relationship with Perry, and potentially the relationship with his girlfriend, which is not well written, but I will talk about. And it's those intangible things like him being able to connect with people outside of his own egoism that allowed him to heal, right?
Yeah.
But anyway,
we can kind of go right to that though, because he has a fight with his girlfriend over his drinking, and he's constantly watching. So quickly,
3 years pass.
He had a part. He had a part in a TV show, which he may have lost over this, and that may be why he's self-loathing. Maybe not. Don't know. But he had a part in a TV show where he read one line.
Yeah.
Right. And it turns out
his catchphrase or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, what is it? Well, excuse me. Oh, well, forgive me.
Forgive me. Yeah.
And he's working on that and all excited before he sees the news and is like, oh, shit.
Right.
I'm guessing he probably lost that opportunity over this. But
I don't even know, though, Chuck, because later on when he has another opportunity and John Delancey is like pitching him the
homeless people.
He's like, what is this? Another disappear job?
Yeah.
I don't think.
You're right.
I think he just didn't show up for the audition.
And it is funny that when he gets back to the radio station, he does say that he's going to have a conversation with recently ousted TV show star Ben Starr because he came back.
Yeah.
Like Harry Shearer lost the job that he would have had.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So he does.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. I was interrupting.
No, you're good. But yeah, he has a fight with I can't remember her name. Mercedes role Anne Napolitano. and he leaves her apartment and gets drunk in the road, and he ends up in, I don't get this shot either, really, because he's in what looks like a bad part of town.
Yeah.
But obviously there are people there that don't like to see bums there, right?
Yeah,
Which doesn't,
like,
it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It does. This bugs me too. I think it bugged me like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Yeah.
I do think it could be one other thing. It's everybody always pushing a certain group down to the point where it's like even the lower middle class people are like, we don't like seeing bums around here.
Maybe, yeah.
And they're just,
but there was no housing there. There was nothing that you could see that.
It's also just ne'er-do-wells looking for trouble, basically. I mean,
regardless of whether it makes sense, the scene is awesome.
Yeah,
he
It's
goes
like the Night of the Living Dead.
Go ahead, you explain it then, Jeff. I want to hear.
No, it's fine. So so like Jack stumbles in. He is ripped, and a rich person's kid did give him a little Pinocchio marionette
because he thought he was a bum.
Yep. And so that's the first of two people who think that he's a bum. And so he ends up, he finishes drinking, he's talking to the marionette. He ends up basically next to or under what I assume is either the Brooklyn Bridge or the George Washington Bridge. And these two guys come up, and it's like, oh, look what we got here. And
you gotta say he's got concrete tied to his shoes. He's going to jump in the river and kill him.
He is going to kill himself because at one point he does tell Anne that he wishes he could just something like, I wish I could just pay the check and go home or something like that.
You ever get that feeling sometimes you're being punished for your sins? I wish I could just pay the fine.
Just pay the
fine and go home. Yeah.
I think he says that later, but
he's acting it
out. But that's how he feels. Like he's looking for an easy way to end his pain.
Right.
Yep.
He doesn't know or is not capable at this point in his life of atoning for what he did.
Right. And so they basically tell him, it's like, well, we told you not to be around here. And he's like, don't worry, I was just leaving, because he's about to jump into the river.
Right.
And then they start to beat him up.
They pour gasoline on him.
They're going to light him on fire. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like so extreme.
Yeah.
Like, was there a rash of like bum burnings in the early 90s in New York City? Like, what the hell?
I don't know,
extreme. but it's but they get their comeuppance, because in through the fog, basically, or out through the fog walks Perry, who is Robin Williams, who starts talking to them like he's a knight.
Oh my God!
Like a literal knight, and then he shoots one guy in the dick with his little suction cup arrows.
This always confused me too, because it is a suction cup arrow, but when he shoots him with it and gets him in the groin, it looks like it is in his pants. I was like, wait a minute, did he just actually shoot an arrow into his crotch? And then he pulls it off and it's like, okay, he didn't. But it sure looked painful.
Yeah, and then and he basically is toying with them a little bit, but he says he's not alone. He's got other knights with him, and out come these other bums shambling out like it's. And one of the kids say it's like Night of the Living Dead.
Looks like the Night of the Living Dead.
Because I thought the same thing. And so basically, they
can't do nothing. I love how Robin Williams mocks him in that scene. So good.
And one guy takes off without his buddy, without the suction cup to the dick guy, and basically they just kind of scare that one guy. I don't think they actually end up beating him up or anything.
No, they tie him up. They tape him up.
They tie him up, tape him up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but they just de-escalate the situation.
Yeah.
And then it turns into a full-on Terry Gilliam fever dream.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
like if you didn't know you were in a Terry Gilliam film, you know now.
You know now, because an old bum is going to laugh directly at the camera at you. Yeah, because he
Cameron
says,
gets all woozy.
Yeah,
So you start getting these interchanging stark angles.
right.
Oh
And
my gosh.
Perry's like, Perry looks at Jack and like realizes he's a drunk, and he also is puking everywhere too at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, I know a place. It's got nice ambiance." And then it's a nightmare.
Yeah. This is a total nightmare. And then Jeff Bridges sets himself on fire, and then he's able to put out the fire on his arm, and then he passes out, and then they all just start clapping.
They all clap for him. Yeah. I do want to point out one thing, which I think is important to the story. When Perry first goes over to Jack to help him up, he has a very lucid moment where he looks at him. Like, he looks directly at him and his eyes become clear. Like, I think in that moment he knows exactly who Jack is.
Who he is.
Yeah.
I think he knows who he is. Yeah.
He says later, when he wakes up in the next morning, he says, I know who you are.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's like the Chosen or Jack. Like, it's not clearly stated. I think so too. I think so because of the look earlier.
Yeah.
There's the lucidity. That's why this performance is so good by Robin Williams, is because it weaves in and out of itself very seamlessly, and I would wonder what his preparation was for this, because it's very clear that
being Robin Williams probably.
Well,
this is one of those examples of using Robin Williams to perfection.
To perfection, I agree. This character has schizophrenia, which we'll find out why in a moment.
Yeah.
And I was reading up a little bit about schizophrenia, and the way he presents with the hallucinations, with the delusions of grandeur, the mythical elements that he incorporates, is all very hallmark schizophrenia. But what's important to note is that trauma does not cause schizophrenia, but it can trigger it. It can trigger in people who are predisposed to schizophrenia due to various other factors. And that's what happens. And that's what we find out here soon in our retelling.
So, he... and it's also something else I want to point out, too, is that the homeless people that we see and the various vagrants that we see, quote unquote, throughout this movie, they are not treated by the camera or by the story as bad.
No.
Or, I mean, in a way, we see them like Jeff Bridges does.
Yes.
At first, it's very startling. And it's very Terry Gilliam in your face. But by the end, you realize they're just people who are down on their luck or whatever the situation is. And, and for half the movie, Jack keeps calling Perry crazy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he sticks around and he sees that there isn't necessarily the negative.
It's like Wake and Fright that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Where the main character, everyone that he sees is very exaggerated because of his perception, I think.
But as the movie goes,
kind of the same.
Yeah, and as the movie goes on, even when we're at the asylum later, at the end of the movie, they become more and more real people, and they become more and more normal to everybody and to everything.
To me, I think that his arc with the homeless people really kind of, it doesn't close, but it becomes an understanding when he has his talk with Tom Waits.
Yes,
like you can really see him empathizing and listening, right? Like Tom Waits is telling him, I'm a cautionary tale to these people. He's explaining his role in their lives, right? Which is sad, but he's also like, this is who I am. And Jeff Bridges isn't judging. He isn't commenting. He's just listening.
Well,
I think it's really important.
that whole dialogue starts by him saying, "That son of a bitch didn't even look at you."
Yeah, right.
When he dropped the coin, but it missed the cup.
But but then Tom Waits says it's okay. He's paying.
Right.
He's paying not to.
He's
Yeah.
He's paying not to look at me.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And he breaks it down for him. And
that's an interesting thing too, because I think a lot of people want to feel better by giving people something like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, in a way, they're paying to make themselves feel better, but not really wanting to help the person, only themselves.
there's a sadness, though, when he talks about how he does to help that person. He helps that person from maybe stabbing his boss, right? Because
Right.
he's so sick and tired of his job, and he's sick about these minor inconveniences in his life, and he gives him someone to think about and say, well, at least I've got it better than that guy. Like, it's incredibly sad, but it's humanizing,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And Bridges, I think is receptive at this point. He can hear these things now at that point in the movie, and he doesn't know it, but he's healing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think this is the kind of advice he would have given on his radio, the kind of story he might have told on his radio show too.
Could be.
And
Oh,
he's
maybe,
hearing it
especially-
from somebody that probably doesn't know him
Right.
or
Didn't
know
know
that
him.
his radio show. So
Right.
there is like kind of a connective tissue there too. I feel. I don't know.
At this point,
Like, it reached
to
him anyway.
yeah. At this point, Jack is just Perry's friend.
Right.
They all know Perry, and but no. And what you said there about this might have been something that Jack had said. It's possible that that's Jack at a more pure point in his career would have said something like that.
Yeah, it almost
And
feels
where
kind of
he went.
mirror-like.
Yeah.
Well,
and
earlier
where he-
on in the movie, Jack wouldn't even lower the window in his submarine, his limousine.
I wouldn't lower the window of my submarine either.
I wouldn't either.
Don't do it.
in his limousine to give the homeless person who's knocking at it. He's like, a couple quarters isn't going to change anything.
Well, I feel like Jack is that guy. Like, it isn't explained, but he probably started from a pure place, right? Like,
Yeah.
him reaching out to people in the world, he probably felt the way he was still speaking, but he had money now.
Yeah,
right? Like he became the thing.
untouchable.
He became the thing that he railed against to become the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a weird cycle, and I think it probably happens all the time.
I think you're right
happens
about that
all the time,
because
yeah.
I don't believe that he would be capable of the remorse, the career-ending remorse that he is suffering if he weren't that person.
Right.
Right.
Yep. This isn't a person who is drastically changing. This is a person who is realizing he's always been a better person, and he becomes that person again.
Well, and
Right.
think about it like this also is that at that time in which somebody takes something that he said too seriously and they went out and killed a bunch of people, Jack probably thinks of himself as partly untouchable, but maybe mostly as a character. Somebody that, hey, people listen to me because I'm a shock jock. It's like Howard Stern is a character.
Right.
Yes, he says a lot of things and he's capable of saying all of those things all the time. But we also know Howard Stern to not be exactly that personality that he was. And so Jack probably thinks himself that way, even if he's grown callous.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, you're right. He's not capable of the feelings that he had if he wasn't a better person than he's kind of shielded himself by.
Right. This isn't like a sociopath we're talking about
Right.
here. That's not what he's not healing some psychosis. This is a probably a good person who became just caught up in his own fame, his own ego. Money went to his head. I mean, this
His
is a
own
classic
image.
story, right?
Well, almost
Yeah.
everyone in this movie is a product of what people have done to them,
Yeah.
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 right? Even Lydia, even Jack, even Perry. Like, they're all a product of some kind of external circumstances,
Yeah.
not because they are this, right?
And they've
Right.
cowered into correction.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
go back to
So yeah, let's go to the morning of. Tell us, Chuck, about the morning after the drunken suicidal attempt. Perry has taken Jack to his boiler room home. Take it from there.
yeah, we have a kind of peak Robin Williams here, right? Like he's he told Jack he knows who he is, but he also tells Jack, like, you need to help me. You're the chosen one.
Yeah.
Look, I was at the, what did he say? He was somewhere taking a shit, and he does this Robin Williams fucking grunter shit for like 30 seconds.
Oh God, yeah.
And then he's like, all the fat little people showed up in the air, and they told me to look at.
They were fat fairies, weren't they?
Fat fairies.
Yeah.
Does he say fairy?
I think he does
I think
say
he calls
fairy.
them fairies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's important too. The fat fairies are floating in the air, and they tell him to look at a certain page of a math magazine that he has. And he goes to that page, and he sees that this. I wish I wrote the old dude's name down, because Carmichael. Carmichael's important because he is the Holy Grail in his office, and Perry's like, I can't go in and get it because he is guarding it. We don't know who he is. And the whole time, Jack is just like, okay, like trying to get out the door, and Jack keeps pulling him back in. It's really kind of a funny scene. I wish I could remember all the things that are said, because I think even Jack mutters something to himself, and Perry's like, who are you talking to?
Yeah. Oh,
Which
every
happens
time-
like,
It happens multiple times. Yeah. And at one point he says, "The fat people,
yeah. The fat
they're
people.
here."
That's when they're in the park, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically he's trying to enlist Jack to break into Carmichael's castle to steal the Holy Grail. And Jack's like, nope, I'm out of here. So he leaves out the basement, and he runs into a man who apparently owns the building, and tells Jack the sad story that Perry was a successful teacher until his wife was shot at the bar that I can't remember the killer's name either. I'm sorry.
Edwin.
Edwin, thank you. The Edwin went in and shot up. After that, Perry, who he had another name before that,
Harry Sagan. Henry Sagan.
Henry Sagan, went catatonic. Is that the right word?
Catatonic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He went catatonic and was in a mental institute for a few years. Why are you laughing at me,
It's
Jason?
pronounced
I-
institute.
Because he was finishing all your sentences, just like
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, he kept asking. He kept
I know.
asking questions. I had the answers
it was
to.
great.
Sorry. Yeah, so he went catatonic, and then once he was released, they brought him back to where he used to live, and the owner of that building put him in the basement. Well, this
Because,
really...
yeah, I mean, this was like several years. I mean, it was the
2 or 3
guy,
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the guy's like, the state just dropped him here, basically. Which there's a little bit of that underplaying too, about how like even the state doesn't really want to deal with people with issues. It's like, yeah, don't worry. We'll take care of him because the state will sign off on him. It's their problem. Oh, the state, when he woke up, they weren't going to keep him in the institution, so they just dropped him back where he used to live.
Right.
And what's the landlord supposed to do with that? It's like,
And landlord did a
place is
good thing.
gone. He did a
Gave
good
him-
thing, but what's he really supposed to do?
Probably what most people would do would be like, you're shit out of luck, and Perry
Yeah,
would really
yeah.
be... Perry's only half homeless, kind of, right? Like,
Right.
he has a place to live. It's just not a great
He has
place to live.
shelter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would call it shelter. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, this kind of impacts Jack again, right? Like it...
Oh, I met somebody by fate almost that I directly affected.
Yeah.
But he wants to stay out of it at this point.
Yeah.
He still wants to stay out of it. He still doesn't understand like reparations or making good on something you've done, because some of his ways of trying to get out of it is to give Perry money,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Like
even before that, that's when he tells Anne, it's like, why can't I just pay the fine, right? What we were
Right.
talking about earlier. And then he literally tries to do that.
yeah, he tries to throw money at everything, right?
Yeah.
Like pay the fine was more of a soulful kind of thing when he first said it. But yeah,
Well, no, but I mean, he literally says that in the scene, right?
No, I know.
He tries to
I
give
know.
Perry
Yeah.
$50.
I know.
He's like, he knows that this isn't going to work, but that's the only thing he's capable of trying at this point.
Right. Which is kind of funny too, because he gives the money to Perry, and Perry sees an old man thinking he's at the stock exchange
Yes.
on the road with a little telephone going, sell, 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 sell.
And he gives him the $70 because it was actually $70 because he gives him a 50 and he's like,
Yeah.
oh, Jack, it's like, oh, and he's like, well, how
$50?
much is this going to take? And he gives him
Yeah.
another 20, and all the while, like Perry's just trying to say, wow, you're so nice.
Yeah, and he's
And he
trying to
can't
hug him
say
and
the
stuff.
words,
He's like,
yeah.
don't touch me.
Right. But yeah, he goes over and sees the guy, sell, gives him the money. And what happens, Chuck?
He goes, buy, buy, buy. And then, which is hilarious.
So good.
But then Jack runs over and he's like, no, you can't give this man the money.
I give
Right,
it to
like-
you. It's your money.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And that's Jack not understanding. Like, well, now it's Perry's. He could do whatever the fuck he wants with it.
And
So Jack has,
Perry has no interest in money, really.
Right. He's like, well, what am I going to do with it?
Right. It's not going to get him a new place. It's not going to give him a clean shower. It's not, I mean,
Yeah.
not going to do him any good. And Jack just doesn't realize that. It's like, it's like the whole thing of, you see the person on the corner of the street asking for help. What would do better for them? A sandwich or $2? It's like probably the sandwich if they're really in that kind of situation.
Right. Buy him a sandwich and sit down and talk to him.
That's good too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the money, money is as important as it is, not as important as compassion and food,
And finding the Holy Grail.
and absolutely getting that Holy Grail. Yeah,
But why is Perry at that building? Because there's a woman there where he goes to give him the money. There's a woman there, Lydia Sinclair, who he's apparently been watching for a long time.
he knows her
Stalking.
routine.
Yeah,
Yes.
he knows her routine. She gets pushed back into the building,
Every day.
going through a revolving door, and he's like, every day she'll be right back out.
And it's
Don't
so
worry.
funny because the person who comes in and pushes her back in almost seems like he does that specifically to spite her.
Yep.
Because it's almost like a bum rush. It's like the guy's waiting, and then bum rushes her, and then
Yeah,
he does
Perry's
it
not
every
the
day.
only one waiting for her,
No.
which is funny. I'm trying to think of what exactly happens next, but
He follows her to the dim sum place.
Oh yeah, they follow her to the dim sum place and watch her through the window. It's really just kind of going through, showing you Perry's understanding or obsession, whatever you want to call it, of this woman.
And it's her lunch hour. He always does it during her lunch hour.
Yep, he always does it during her lunch hour because she's out of her office. Does after the dim sum place, is that when he shows him the castle?
He shows him the
Or-
castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they follow her back to work where she gets the jawbreaker, and she goes up to she has to try to figure out how to get into the revolving door.
Yep.
But yeah,
Well,
he
so-
takes him to the castle. He explains that's where the Grail is, and he reiterates that he needs him to get the Grail because he's the one that the fairies told him would. The fat fairies told him would get the Grail. And that's kind of like when Jack sort of just can't handle this kind of crazy, and he
Tries to snap him out of it.
tries to snap him out of it, and it doesn't go the way he wants it to.
He has a complete psychotic break.
He does. He has a break. He starts seeing this image, this hallucination of a Red Knight on a
How
horse.
fucking cool did the Red Knight look?
Oh, Red Knight
Oh,
looks
looks
awesome.
super cool.
Yeah.
Red Knight looks awesome. And he's and this Red Knight.
He kind of
find
looked a
out-
little bit like the Green Knight.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Except not all mossy.
Well, not
Right.
mossy, but he had it looked like branches and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. He almost kind of looks Japanese.
A
With,
little
like
bit.
the flags and everything.
A little bit,
It feels
yeah.
a little medieval Japanese. Anyway, you find out that this is the thing that's keeping Perry from the Grail, and it's representative of his trauma. It's his fear.
It's a very specific
it-
representation.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It is.
yes.
And also, but he also realizes that the Red Knight is scared of Jack.
Yeah.
Now, this could be because he thinks Jack is the chosen one that will, be able to get the Grail for him, and that's how he pieces it together. That the more he's around Jack, the less he sees the Red Knight.
Right. Well, he's even emboldened because
he
he
chases
realizes that
it.
he starts to chase the knight, and because he's got Jack on his side, he feels safe. Probably for the first time since his wife was killed, and he chases them all through Central Park.
This is fucking great.
Yeah.
The scene is fucking great.
It is really great, and Jack is struggling to keep up, but
Yeah.
But Perry is just like he's on a mission and he's dodging cars, getting hit by cars. He's just like
Going
will
through
not be
Central Park.
stopped.
Yeah.
And then
I mean,
eventually Jack catches up to him. And he's just sitting peacefully on a rock overlooking.
and Jack is like, I'm
an
going to
open
die. I can't breathe.
And
Isn't this
Perry's
great,
just like,
Jack?
isn't this just a beautiful view? It's like, and I like what he says too. It's like if we had horses, we'd have had his ass.
But then they hear a damsel in distress.
They do.
And Jason, I'm guessing you want to talk about this
I
gentleman.
mean,
Oh, man. I hadn't thought about this actor in several years.
it's been a while,
And
for me,
I
too.
forgot that he was in this.
Yeah.
How I forgot that he was in this, I have no idea. Because he is so freaking good in this.
So good.
Yeah.
Like, it's a damn shame he didn't get an Oscar for this.
I know. It's kind of one of those performances where he's in maybe 20, 25 minutes, if that. It's probably been 15 minutes in this movie. And he steals everything he's in.
Yeah.
And he's like that part you just remember.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything about his role was springing to mind as I was watching again. Like I was like,
Right.
oh my god, yes, I remember this performance. It's so good. But he has it's not quite clear to me actually what happened. Is he trying to get run over by a horse?
Yes.
Or did he get run over by a horse?
I think he's trying to get run over, or he
He
stepped
wants
out
to
and-
be a damsel in distress. He wants
Right.
someone on a horse to save him.
Yes.
Okay.
So
okay.
he's kind of in the same medieval
yes.
mindset that Perry is. At least that's the
Right.
way I read it.
And he's bleeding and covered in horse shit. And he's kind of having a bit of his own mental breakdown here. And Perry's trying to bring him out of it. Talking to him about the old debutantes. It's like the debutantism isn't a thing anymore, and he was like, "That's a shame." But he gets him to get up, and he convinces Jack to help him take him to the hospital, and Jack agrees, and they go to the hospital, and oh my god,
He's all over his lap.
he's
It's
sitting
hilarious.
in his lap, and it's so good, and Jack is really kind of being a good sport about it and talking to him. And he's like, but he asks him the question. He's like, "Let me ask you." It almost asks in sincerity, I think,
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than just joking, just in spite. He says, "Did you go crazy all at once, or was it a gradual thing?" And that's when it gets real. That's where his character's name is homeless cabaret singer, by the way.
Which is hilarious.
It is hilarious. But that's what Michael Jeter talks about his story. He talks about how he used to be a cabaret singer. He lived for it. And then he watched all of his friends die.
Yep.
From AIDS. He doesn't say that.
He doesn't say it, but it's
but that's what it's. That's
it's
what
the
happened.
implication.
And his whole life collapsed around him. And when he says that, what really breaks my heart, oh my God, I'm going to get like emotional. He says, I sound like a veteran, don't I? My dad would be so proud. It's like, fuck. That is just like devastating.
It is devastating, and it also is very connective of humans in general, right? Like, you don't always know, like, saying he sounds like a general, what am I trying to say here? Let me rescue myself. He is no different than anyone else that has lost people, right? And not everyone makes those connections, and it's important for Jack to learn that lesson throughout this movie, that his loss, what he impacted, is no greater and maybe less impactful than what other people have encountered.
Right.
So it is a very touching, sad scene. I agree.
It's another thing that helped claw him out of his self-loathing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's what he has to do. He's really like, he doesn't know what to do. All the walls are slick, right? Like, how do you get out of this hole? So what?
It's right after that he starts to find out information about Lydia.
Yeah.
He finds out where she works. He knows what her first name is. He tries to call her to basically, he says, because, okay, so Anne owns a video store that Jack just kind of works at, sometimes.
Yeah.
Most of the time he's drunk.
But his girlfriend owns the video store.
And they live in the apartment right above it. And so basically he calls Lydia, to which he's told Anne very, very little about like who Lydia is, what he did with Perry for the entire day.
Yeah.
To the point where she thought he was cheating on her, which doesn't help when he's asking for a Lydia on the phone.
Right.
But basically, he does eventually explain it to her. But anyway, he tries to get in touch with Lydia to basically play off that you've won a free membership to our video store. And Lydia's like, I don't have a VCR. It's like, well, you'll get one.
Until his girlfriend looks at him like with a mean stank eye, and he's like, until you get your own.
Right. And all the while, Jack does something constantly with a box of tapes.
Yeah.
Where he's doing the same thing we saw him do at the beginning with the radio stingers, where he knows how to mix, like while he's talking to her, he's playing music, and basically he's like, yeah, we got your name from all the credit card companies. And she's like, which ones? All of them.
It's like, was I on a list?
Right.
It's like, when you chose my name, were there people around? It's like, what does this matter?
Right.
She's like, I've never won anything in my life.
Right. So
she's very skeptical. Yeah.
She's very skeptical. She's very behind her own walls, kind of like Jack is.
Yeah. She's a very guarded person.
Guarded. Yeah. She's very pessimistic, and she is. What's funny is her pessimism and her guardedness is not like Jack's, where there's a chance that you could like a Jack. Her guardedness makes her almost unlikable.
Well, I agree with that. And then there was something that you said earlier, though, about the scene where the two women are together, which comes up later. But she does care what other people think about her.
Oh yeah.
And that's why her wall is up.
Sure. I mean, okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So basically she hangs up on them. So Jack comes up with another idea.
Oh my god, it's so fucking amazing.
It's the best scene in the movie. I'm sorry.
I've said it like 3 times. This is my favorite scene in different areas, but this is probably my favorite.
It is absolutely fucking amazing. I mean,
then go for it. What happens?
I mean, I can't do it justice. I can't even do it like 1% justice. But oh my god! But Jack enlists homeless cabaret singer Michael Jeter to dress up in drag and with a bunch of
balloons.
What is the name of the video store? It's like
it's Spot On
Video balloons. And, and deliver her free membership that she won, like a singing telegram, basically.
Yes.
And he just is not going to be stopped. He's like, I'm on a mission. And he bursts into the office that she works, and he's walking through, looking for the right cubicle. He's so determined, and he passes hers, and then he's like, nope, that's it, and he backs up.
You must be she.
You must be she. And he startles her. I love how startled she is. She's like,
Amanda Plummer plays this part really well.
She's perfect. And then he launches into his song, awarding her the free membership, and
it's all about Lydia. Is
all about Lydia.
What the lyrics are,
and the endless videos and types of videos that
and even
she
pornos
will have access to. Yeah, and when he says even pornos, and he lifts up his dress, and shows her his ass like in panties. Oh my god, so good. And I like it when he says, I can't remember the perfect line or the exact line, but it's like, but something around like the fact that you now have access to all these things that the people who don't have VCRs or something. Just this wonderful thing, and it's completely dated now in its.
I think it was dated when it came out.
Maybe
like it feels like a 30-year prior kind of thing to happen.
I just love the you're right, because the comedy in it is how ridiculous it is that anyone would get this excited over winning a free video rental membership, right? And it's even funnier now in the context of that, right? But my God, it's this perfect moment. And I can't get enough. I think I watched it like 4 times.
There's nothing better in that scene than Jeter and Plummer's reaction, but I quite loved, because I watched it a couple times too. Like, you can see people filing in.
They start collecting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Everybody loves it or is just in shock, right?
Well, which is also great, because it's like Amanda Plummer is a character who does everything she can to not be noticed, and everybody is noticing this.
Yeah,
right. But she loves it too. She has like she does almost a manic excitement of it.
Well, nothing exciting ever happens to her, right? So she's skeptical, but she's also like, I got to see this through. This is amazing. Like this kind of shit just never happens to me, right? Yeah.
That's the only way. Like, this spectacle is the only way to convince her to come into the store. Yeah, they went 0 to 60 on the.
And then she goes in confrontational.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, well, you got me now, you know, and
she's like, so how does this work?
Yeah.
And they've tried to dress up Perry the best they can. They put a video store.
Oh my god! They just put the shirt on over him, and
they give him a deodorizer,
a car freshener,
to wear. It's like, oh yeah, that's good. You'll smell like a pine tree.
This is great. This is perfect. One little thing that I noticed at the video store, I don't know if you guys did, but this movie's TriStar, which was Columbia.
Yeah.
Every single movie at their video store was the Columbia box. Well, it was a Columbia box, but because they were very, very unique, the way the sides of their boxes were. And I'm like, oh my god, all they have are Columbia movies. That's awesome.
Even the pornos, they were Columbia pornos.
Oh no, those weren't. But that was interesting how they had to go into the office.
Yeah. To get the pornos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember what VH1's porno room smelled like. I would not want that to be the office.
Well, that was their back room, right? Like, it's the
Yeah.
only back room they had in this small little thing. But Amanda Plummer is so fucking clumsy in there. It's hilarious.
Oh my god, they knock every video off every shelf. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because also Robin Williams is really nervous and extra clumsy now.
Yeah, when he's trying to catch shit, he knocks more movies
More
down.
of it down, yeah.
And then Jack is just kind of fucking duding. Like, it's very dude in this scene. When he's sitting behind the bar like, oh, well, we'll just throw in the thing, man.
Yeah.
And then she says that she likes musicals. That's what that's the
Ethel
type of movie.
Merman.
And then
Ethel
he
Merman
goes over and it's like,
specifically.
well, this is our entertainment center. And it's the spinning rack, and it's got all the musicals apparently. He's trying to offer a bunch of musicals. She's like, we got anything with Ethel Merman? And he looks over at Anne, and she's like, no. And she's like, what? She starts to throw a tantrum.
Oh my god, it's that
She
cracked
starts to
me
throw
up.
a tantrum, and she's like, "This is a ripoff," and everything. And I love the delivery of Robin Williams at this point. After she throws a tantrum, he looks back at Anne. He just says, "That sucks."
Well, and then Anne says, I think I just ordered something. And then, just with daggers in her eyes,
Well, did you or didn't you?
didn't you?
So this is the comedy. This is the part
This is
where
the
I would...
comedic part. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then Jack is like, no, she did. She ordered them. They're coming.
It's a funny scene.
It is
Because there's a lot of funny scenes in the movie. Like, I can understand to some degree how people can position this as a comedy, but at its core, it's not. But it takes a lot of the weight of this
Yeah.
movie off of it by accentuating some comedy moments.
I have a feeling that this movie was sold as a comedy because you wouldn't bring people in to a Robin Williams drama,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. 'cause
right?
I mean,
even though it's not.
Yeah. I mean,
most
'cause,
definitely. Yeah,
I bet people, because Good Morning Vietnam was sold as a comedy, but it's got some heavy shit in it.
right.
Dead Poet
He's very
Society,
serious in that movie too.
right? I mean,
Robin
he does
Williams, yeah.
does the act for the radio, but the rest of it is very serious.
right.
The Dead Poet Society sold as a comedy, or
No
not
way.
sold as a comedy, but sold as the parts of the trailer that you see him in. He's doing all of the high energy stuff in the trailer. Not sold as a comedy, but that's Robin Williams doing Robin Williams things.
Right. That
You know,
movie was
so-
kind of a shock to the system, like watching Dead Poets Society.
I love
but
that movie.
we should talk about that sometime.
Yes,
Sure.
you should.
But yeah, so no, I mean, this is the same thing in this. The trailer, which I think that was Dead Poet Society. No, never mind. I'll just back out of that conversation.
The trailer for this was Robin
lot of
Williams
the-
being Robin Williams
Yep.
in the medieval stuff.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
It was like this is Terry Gilliam and Robin Williams, basically.
Terry Gilliam, Robin Williams, and guess what? Robin Williams is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to see that? Yeah, see?
Man, let's see that.
It's the Caspian, see? Sorry, go ahead.
But anyway, so yeah, at this point, it's like, okay, well, we also want to try to let's go out on a double date. And
Most
this guy
ridiculous thing in this movie
Right.
by a lot.
So
Yeah.
I think this is where you guys have your major issues. So I will defer.
Okay, it's not even yet, but maybe it is for Chuck. But I'm still
It's not actually.
I'm still with it at this point. I'm with it for the whole Chinese dinner scene. I think it's I
That
think it's
scene
hilarious.
is great. That scene is great.
It's kind of Charlie Chaplin-y.
Yeah,
But it's also
when Anne
charming.
is like, these two are actually might be perfect for each other.
It's like, and I can't, it's like, if that's even possible, these people were born for each other.
I'll say that for this scene, it's fucking ridiculous that this even happens. But in the context of the movie, it definitely works,
Yeah.
right? Like what it really accomplishes is you have these two people, Perry and Lydia, who are just kind of discovering each other.
Yeah.
Right? And it's wonky and weird, and they're goofy and ridiculous. And then you have Anne and Jack, who have been kind of struggling through years of like difficult romance, right? I don't even know if you can call it romance, but like just difficult.
Jack's never even told her he loved her.
Right.
Yeah.
But this, it doesn't make him tell her he loves her, but it makes him remember what the romance of their relationship was. Right? So it's almost like two adults being with two children, just realizing like there's magic.
Yeah.
Sure.
In relationships.
I hope. It's hard for me to. Yeah, go ahead, Chuck or Jeff. I'll germinate on what I'm going to say here.
I will say that I think there's a lot of actual heart in this part of the movie. I think that there is, you know, it's like to use an old term, kind of rooting for the two weirdos.
Sure.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and it's like, there's a lot of things that you would say don't do what Perry does. don't be like Perry as far as like following her around and everything. But
Bingo.
there is I don't necessarily I never really felt that, oh, these people need to be away from each other. This isn't a licorice pizza situation where I think these people need to be on opposite ends of the fucking planet.
No. I agree, Jeff, with everything there. I think that it is very sweet, and there's a lot of heart to it, and it has nothing but good intentions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do believe that when he walks her home, and she kind of tells him how the rest of the night is going to go, that's also very good.
Yes.
And she explains to him that, you know, I'm going to feel good in the morning for an hour or two.
You're not going to want breakfast.
And you're never going to call, and I'm going to start to slowly feel worse and worse about myself. Why do I continue to do this to myself? Right? That is all heartbreaking. And right. I believe that to be true. When he then... You know, and he hears her and he reacts to that, and he's like, hey, we've just, you know, met, had a relationship, had sex, and broke up all in 5 minutes. It's like, let's slow down here, you know, and he explains to her, I don't want to go up there with you. I'm old-fashioned. I want to get to know you. I want to start with a kiss. Like, this is all, again, wonderful stuff. But then he starts to tell her that he's in love with her and that he knows her routine, and he's been watching her for God knows how long. And I don't believe that she reacts appropriately. I think she reacts to a male fantasy. And that's where I like, fuck. I mean, I wasn't even writing notes because I didn't remember how she took that, right? I didn't remember where the scene went next. And I was writing notes. I was like, oh no, Perry, you know, this is not the way to do this. You know, maybe you do need to be honest at some point about this, but I didn't see that scene going well. And when she like starts to cry and cradle him in his head in her hands and kiss him, I was like, I don't know.
Here's my problem with it, which is different than yours, but my problem with it would eliminate what you have a problem with. It was so childish up to this point, like an infatuation of like an 11-year-old kid who followed a girl down the hallways, and you know they have their meal and they're goofy, like they're almost childlike.
Yeah,
having that very adult conversation ruined the fun of their relationship for me. It would have been better if he just had a kiss and like just an innocent little step kiss and walked away without having any of that adultness to it, because they're not the adults in the movie, right? It's like a break in character almost for these two. But he could have started remembering again what his past was and still had that break in the road without that conversation. So I think taking the childlike nature of them away from them is what made me dislike it.
That's fair. I think that, you know, and maybe, I don't know, and there is kind of an old-fashionedness to that scene too.
But they weren't being serious at any moment until that point. It comes out of nowhere almost.
it might have been well, you've gone this far, why don't you go then, maybe it was like a throw it in on the final rewrite or something. I don't know.
But to me, it feels true to her character to this point, though. It's like, why is she so hardened, right?
Right.
And you get that from her. I do agree, Chuck. It does kind of eliminate both problems to do it that way. But I don't know. Is she as good a character without her moment?
Probably not. But I think that speaks to the almost kitchen sink approach of this movie, that maybe there's one extra relationship in this movie that doesn't need to be there to make everything work.
Yeah.
Like Perry's arc maybe doesn't need to be that way. We don't need, for me, I think this movie could be complete with Jack getting his arc and Perry being the person who pushes that along. I don't know how to explain that.
I do understand. And I honestly kind of agree. Because at the end of the day, when Perry's back in the hospital and Anne is there, it's not what saves Perry.
No.
It's a nice little thing.
He's already saved.
I'm not totally sure how true that even rings, right?
I agree with that too.
It feels a little bit Hollywood, a little bit like, oh, we want to see both characters get the lady, right? Very cliche. It's very old Hollywood.
And it also doesn't give us any of, I don't want to skip ahead too much, but Perry just gets a happy ending with no growth. Like, right. We don't even know his mental state.
Yeah, we don't even know if he goes back to being Henry again.
Right, we know nothing about him.
Yeah.
So that's why I think you could cut out that arc of his, because it doesn't pay off in any meaningful way.
Right.
And I don't personally didn't need it to, so why is it there?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Although I will say that there is one thing I would still keep in the movie when we get to it. But right. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on all that, but it was a little.
But my criticism of both of this movie is in both of their relationships, because ultimately the relationship between Jack and Anne is resolved way too neatly as well. In a way that is contradictory to her character, because she constantly is talking about, don't treat me like a fool, or I forget the word she uses, or dope. She's like, I won't be treated like a dope. I'm not a dope. And yet she's so quick to accept him back. That
should I address this now?
Yeah, it's like it's so like trite. It's like boiled down to like she slaps him and then she kisses him. It's like, oh my God, that's not real.
It is not real. And you know why it's not real? Because this is a fucking fairy tale and they have happy endings.
Fair enough.
Like this movie is a literal.
But if that's the case, then you got to give Perry the girl too.
I guess. I don't even think she needed to be in the movie.
Huh.
Personally, I like her a lot, but I don't think she's needed to tell the story.
Well, there would have to be something else, but yeah.
Probably. But he does get the girl. So the ending, like Perry gets the girl, Jack gets the girl. It's all very fairy tale.
But I think that demeans it a little bit, because I think it can rise above it.
It allows me to accept it, because this movie quite literally is a fairy tale.
Oh, I accept
fairies telling Perry, like, you have to go get the Grail. It's like the fairy godmother, like, giving him powers to find the chosen one to go get the Grail and all that shit.
Sure.
Like,
I mean, just the fact that he gets the Grail and gives it to him, it somehow brings him out of his catatonic state, right? We can talk about that too.
Right.
Well, that I think is the most unrealistic thing, but
it's the payoff.
It's the story.
But it's the story, and it's not the Grail itself. It's not the cup that did it. It's the intention. Right.
Well, let's talk about
It's the story of the Fisher King.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes. So, do you want to describe the Fisher King, Jeff? Should we actually mention that, because it's the name of the movie?
Yeah. So the Fisher King is an old Arthurian legend that basically this is technically, I believe, post Arthur, although again, Jason and I were talking about this earlier. There's been so many iterations of it that even like the famous Le Morte d'Arthur, it does not clearly state who the Fisher King is. But he also is known by the Wounded King. Basically, it's a tale of a king who was basically the final the final keeper of the Holy Grail and
protector.
Protector, yeah. And his health and the state of the English island basically are intertwined. And he becomes injured at one point that he ends up becoming bedridden, and the state of the country goes south. And then somebody, and in this movie is told it's a fool that ultimately discovers the Grail, gives the king a cup of water when he said he was thirsty, with the Grail, and it heals him and the land, and everything is perfect. And he realizes that the Holy Grail was there the whole time. And how did the fool know that was the Grail? And he says, I didn't know. I only knew that you were thirsty. That was used and adapted to a certain extent in the John Borman's Excalibur, which Jason and I talked about many, many moons ago. And that is essentially the third act of Excalibur. It's been adapted and changed
and this movie.
And the third act of this movie too. Yeah. So it is, and it is also often tied to Percival, who was the person who discovered the Holy Grail in one of the tales. It's mixed into that whole mixed bag that is the Arthurian legend.
It's like the Bible.
Yeah, pretty much, and it's told in many parts with many characters. And the Fisher King is not usually, it is not the same person as King Arthur, and is usually either depicted by one of 3 or 4 different characters in most stories. So, but anyway, there you go.
Yes. So
don't I sound smart?
Yeah. So after the meeting at the steps, we talked about this when Lydia and Perry have that conversation we were critical of. Perry gets his kiss and goes out in the street, and he has another break, right? Like the kiss brings out memories of his past, and we finally are shown the shot that killed his wife, and her head exploding and the blood splattering on Perry's face, which is what the Red Knight basically represents, is that
vision that he had.
That vision of the blood coming towards his face. So he runs off, and he ends up at the same place that Jack was at earlier, which is kind of goofy a little bit again. But he ends up there, and those same 2 guys come there, and they beat the ever-living shit out of Perry. And
they honestly slash him, and they could have killed him, honestly.
And he thanked them.
Probably trying to.
Yeah. He thanked them for trying to kill him. Like, this is the release, that he's going to get the release. But forget the beating.
Because it's during the psychotic breaks where Perry is confronting his reality.
Yes.
And he's feeling the weight of his grief. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the beating takes that away from him again, right? Like it gives him something else to focus on. But he ends up catatonic again. Right as Jack is feeling great about setting up Perry with Lydia, and he's starting to think, I can go back to my work. And what's her name again? Anne is super happy for him, and
they're talking about buying a house. And
well, she is.
She is, right? Yeah.
No, she is not. He is. Yeah.
No, that's why I said she is.
Oh, sorry, misunderstood you. Yeah, she is very excited about their future, and Jack's like, I don't know about our future. Like, I'm just now coming to terms with my stuff, basically, I want to go back to work. I want to think about this. They have a fight. Then they get a call that Perry is in the hospital. So they run over there. Perry's catatonic. He's out. The doctors, again, Jeff, you brought this up earlier, like the state and taking care of someone that's kind of real dismissive. And they seem like, sorry.
Giving away information about his state and his condition and then asks, oh, wait, are you a family man? Fuck it, who cares?
Who cares? He's going to go back into the system. You don't need to worry about it.
He's going to get the care, don't worry about it. State will deal with him.
Yeah.
Very dismissive, yeah.
Yeah. So Jack does go back to work, and he's walking across.
He's going to meet with Q.
Yeah, he's going to meet with Q with David Hyde Pierce.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the homeless cabaret singer is being booted off of whatever you call that, the terrace or outside of the building, the sidewalk, whatever. Yeah. And he's screaming at Jack, like, I know you, talk to me, help me, whatever. And Jack appears to have gone back to his old self, right? Hasn't learned a fucking thing. He goes upstairs. He hears the story of the show that one of you mentioned earlier about homeless people, but it's going to be a comedy. It's going to be
not going to be, but they're not going to be looked at as bad people. They're going to be wise, and it's like, oh my god,
it's so bad, and they want to be homeless.
They want, isn't that great? Yeah. Oh god, it's so bad,
so bad.
But this kind of snaps Jack out of this delusion he's gone back into, right? Or like of I don't care delusion.
Right. Well, because he knows these people better than that.
Yes. And he gets up and he runs off and he goes to try to find the homeless cabaret singer. He can't. So the next thing he can do is go back to
Perry. Yeah. And we lost you.
Oh, I think he muted himself. It's okay.
Oh.
Anyway, he said this. He warned us that this might happen. He might lose his voice.
I know he might lose his voice.
Yeah.
So anyway, and at this point he's like basically he's unloading on Perry at this point.
Yeah.
And he's basically like telling him, it's like, you've got it easy. You're insane. It's like, you don't know what I have to do to live. And as he's kind of unloading, he's also, I think, coming to terms with realizing what the implication of everything.
He's kind of arguing with himself, if you can hear me.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So he basically gets to the point where it's like, oh, okay, so if I go and get you the Grail, you'll snap out of this horse shit or whatever, and you'll basically is like, so if I go do this for you, you're going to let me free more.
But I'm not doing it for you.
I'm not doing it for you, right?
Or I'm not doing it for me. If I do this, I am doing it for you. Sorry,
right? But you still get the impression that he's at the final stop in his arc.
Yeah,
but he is being kind of true to himself or to his character that, I'm going to do this, but he's going to be, I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but
he's trying to downplay.
Yeah.
Downplay it for himself because he still can't get over his ego. Right.
Exactly.
Right. But in reality, he's doing probably truly the first selfless thing he's done since we've met him.
Right.
He's going to do this thing, this act, this crazy thing out of pure kindness because he in friendship because he can't lose Perry. Perry has become important to him. He's his friend.
And it's literally represented by him putting himself in Perry's shoes.
Absolutely. Yes. He becomes the fool. He's always been the fool. But now he has He has
Yeah,
represented.
He's accepted it. He's
Yeah.
accepted that he's the fool.
Yes.
And his little break-in is kind of hilarious. We don't have to go through it, but his little bows and arrows.
Yeah,
he's like
yeah.
Perry,
Right.
basically.
He is. He's totally become Perry.
And
Yeah.
he also sees the Red Knight.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
And he
Which
hears
is-
the horses.
Right. But but he sees him in the form of Edwin. He's facing his own Red Knight.
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
So, but yeah, and he even goes one step further
Yeah.
and helps somebody else.
Yeah.
This is important because this is the Fisher King story being retold
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
here. You got Carrington who's dying.
Well, he's committing suicide.
Yes, well, he's committing suicide. He's dying. And Jack can leave the way he came in, but instead he purposefully trips the alarm and saves Carrington's life.
Yeah.
There's
So the
one thing in this moment.
It's also
that
an easier way to leave if I'm being.
It is,
Well,
but
but-
it is a Fisher King full thing.
Yeah,
for
right.
sure.
But there is one thing though that is more accurate than anything else could possibly be accurately portrayed in this movie. He is barely outside the door of this mansion before you hear the sirens coming to save the rich
Yeah.
white guy.
Yes,
Yeah. Very true. Very
for
true.
sure. For
The
sure.
old rich guy who's lived a life, he can fucking die. You know, he's old. Yeah, you don't need him around anymore. Divvy up his riches to the people like Perry. You know, but
Well, I mean, Jack chose to save him. He
I
could
know,
have died.
I know. But it's funny how fast you hear the sirens.
Right.
But anyway, yeah. So then he takes this chalice or this trophy, really is what it is.
Trophy for Carrington's kid. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know, I don't even know what the significance of this is, other than it looks like a grail.
Yeah.
There is no significance. It's a kid's trophy for a
Yeah.
baseball game or something.
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
And he gives it because it's from like 1972, so it has no relevance to Henry or Perry as he became Perry or his wife. Nothing.
No.
Right.
So he delivers it, and he's like, "All right, so now you're gonna wake up, right? Oh, okay, you got to think about it some more. All right, fine." And so he goes to sleep, and Perry eventually wakes up, and we do find out that earlier we did find out that Lydia had continued to come and visit him. So apparently she found out somehow that he got slashed up.
Yeah.
Right.
The only reason why Jack knows is that the hospital called Jack because Jack gave him his wallet so that he would pay for the date with Lydia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yes,
and he
the
didn't.
Chinese
He
dinner.
forgot to get it back. Yeah.
There is a moment here when Perry does wake up that gives us a little clue of maybe where Perry is in the future, because he says, "I had a dream. I had a wife.
Yes.
Is it
this was-
okay for me to miss her now?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That, I like that line a
I do
lot.
too.
It's great.
It is an excellent way of processing loss.
Yes.
You know, because at some point you do move on, and moving on means that you miss somebody. It's not that you're holding on to that memory.
Right.
It's you're now missing.
You're not
that
trying to
person's
keep him
presence.
alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
and it
that's
also
an
and it
excellent
also
thing.
didn't take the weird easy way out of just healing him completely, right?
Right.
Because did you get a little bit of that with his next encounter with what's her name?
Lydia.
Lydia.
Because
Agree.
he's like, where you been?
Yeah.
He's like, he's kind of oblivious to, some of what's happened to him. He has processing to do,
Right.
right? But he's finally on his way to healing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
There is hope there.
right. Exactly. Because if he can, if they've got the Grail, essentially defeated the Red Knight, and he's able to move on past that tragedy, then he's, in time he probably will be Henry again,
Yeah.
but he's going to become Henry with Lydia.
But let's be real about the the medical shit in this. If he has schizophrenia, which he does, he still has schizophrenia, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
he maybe doesn't have schizophrenia, he still has schizophrenia, but he's dealing with his subsequent and tandem post traumatic stress, right?
Sure.
Because he's got both of those things. So he's got a long way to go.
Oh yeah,
if we're being honest.
He's gonna have fist loads of pills to take
Yes.
for the rest of his life.
Right.
If he even will take those, because that's going to be another problem. That's going to be another hurdle to jump. Does he like the idea of being better, or better, quote unquote, better, or does he like who he is now?
Right.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing. By the way, also another adaptation of The Fisher King was The Natural. That was one we all talked about.
Oh yeah.
Oh damn! I didn't realize that.
Huh.
Yeah, Roy Hobbs was Percival and Pop Fisher was the Fisher King in that.
Well, I'll fucking
Pretty
be.
good.
So yeah, I'll be honest. I thought when I watched this movie that one of you is going to really dislike it. I don't know why, but that was what I thought. So this actually,
I remember liking this movie, and I was glad to see it again.
Me too. But I had more problems with it than I remembered. But yeah,
I do too. I mean,
it's fine to have the problems. It's fine to have the problems. I mean,
yeah,
I can kind of not necessarily forgive those problems. I can look past them in two ways. One, it's a 30-year-old movie, and two, it is told like a fairy tale. So that's
how I let him get away with it.
Right. Yeah, and the fairy tale makes it by almost default an old style, kind of old fashioned.
And they have happy endings.
But
it can have a happy ending without it having like.
I agree.
Without her just like falling back into his arms, like it could still be happy ending.
Sure,
there could be an opportunity there for him to win her trust, right? She doesn't have to slam the door.
Or even Jack's understanding of himself is happy enough. She doesn't really need to come back into it, but
I'm okay with that scene. If he even says to her, "Look," he explains it to her. It's like, "Look, I understand. I have work to do. I hope we can go out on a date or something like that." And she agrees. Like there's a more realistic and mature way of writing her and him in that scene.
No, they did the mature shit for Perry and Lydia earlier.
Yeah, right.
Which I don't think they should have.
But that didn't work
which
either.
Is kind of funny.
But that didn't work either for a different reason. Both of the women were written in this way to be conveniently reunited or united with a man. Yeah. And that is why I have a problem with it today.
Sure.
You could rewrite both relationships and a movie would still work really well, and it would work better, in my opinion. But other than that, I really like it. Ultimately, the hard story is Perry and Jack.
Absolutely. And the fact that they finish on the green of Central Park naked, looking at the stars, because it's a way to he kind of describes this like if you look at a cloud and you can. You may have the power to separate the clouds to see the sky or the sea. It's all a metaphor of like, cutting through stuff to picture yourself in a better place or to heal, or to be your ultimate self. But it's all nice. It's all very, very pleasant.
And Jack looks wide-eyed up at the sky like he's the dude traveling underneath a bunch of women's legs on a bowling alley.
Yeah.
Well, I have a feeling in a couple of months we'll be talking about that movie. Am I right, Chuck?
I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but yes, we will.
So anyway, but no, it's and also it's important to note that all four plus Derek Jeter are excellent in this movie.
Yes,
I said that on purpose. I wanted to see the look that Chuck actually gave.
I was like,
that was fantastic. No, Michael Jeter and the four main they are pitch perfect.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm surprised I wasn't the one who Who's
Call
the
them
Derek
Derek
Jeter?
Jeter.
Because I was struggling with that earlier. Yeah.
I kept giggling to myself all day yesterday when I was like, Derek Jeter.
I never once did that. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Glad you guys like this on rewatching it. It makes sense to me that you do, but for some reason when I watched it, I was like, maybe someone's going to not like it. I don't know why.
Nope.
This is a good movie. This is
Cool.
It's a good movie.
What's next? Who picked next? What is next?
Next, we are going to, okay, so next Wednesday is May 31st. And that usually means that, you know what? In some instances, for some people, summer is already kicked off. In other instances, summer is about to kick off. But let's get into the mood of the season, and let's talk about some summer movies, man.
Ooh, summer movies, man.
So we're going to do another thing, another one of those situations like we've done with horror tropes and the movies of '97, and I feel like there was another one we did, but maybe not. I think those were the only two that we've done so far.
Those are the only two.
Okay, so this is going to be another one of our just discussion topics, some light and breezy talk about some good stuff, and that good stuff is going to be summer movies. I was a kid who lived for summer because I didn't like going to school. I went to school. I was an okay student. I just didn't like going to school.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved going to movies in the summertime. And which is funny because I still like seeing movies that are made for the summertime audience, but I hate summer. It's funny how that works out in life.
Yeah.
You gain
Well, it
about
wasn't
80
95 when we were
pounds.
kids.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, you gain about 80 pounds, and all of a sudden, 90% humidity and 88 degrees sounds like shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so so that's going to be next week. We're going to talk about summer movies, and then it's going to be summertime, and we've got some fun planned for summertime. I think it's going to be real fun summer.
It is.
So it's going to be good times. Do that next Wednesday, May 31st. Before that, though, there are two other things that are happening. Tomorrow, I have a special film seizure at the movies where I'm going to talk about just some personal feelings and thoughts I had on the Star Wars trilogy.
Interesting.
Tomorrow is the 40th birthday of Star Wars coming to a close. I'm just going to say it like that and leave it like that because the rest of it, I feel like you can take it or leave it. It's about 50-50 on whether you can take it or leave it. So anyway, that's going to be tomorrow, May 25th, 46th anniversary of Star Wars, 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. Next Monday, I am doing an episode of Monster Mondays on the William Friedkin cult classic, The Guardian. So look forward to that as well. Those can all be found at filmseizure.com. Follow us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You'll find out when things drop. You can also subscribe to us on various podcast platforms. Also, tomorrow this Friday at bmovieanima.com, my website, I have a review of Memorial Valley Massacre, starring the Heavenly Father Cameron Mitchell in one single scene. I think I hear him.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. No, not right now. He's not.
All right. Anyway.
He lost his voice in the clouds.
Anyhow, so that's what's coming up. I hope to see everybody there at those various things. But in the meantime, I need to go back on my quest for my own Holy Grail and kick the Red Knight in the dick. I've been Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Chuck Moore.
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.
Hit the road, Jack.